Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another bonus segment of the Brothers Take, where we are back in the room to talk about The Last of Us Part 2. But this is only going to be a very early first impressions video of the game. We've all played it. I think we've wanted to talk about it, but we're all at very different points of the game.
Yeah,
Eric is much further than I am.
I will tell
I
you
am.
that I've cleared it.
Oh,
Oh, okay.
I've completed it.
okay.
So-
Eric has finished the game. New information. I didn't know that. I definitely. I don't know where I am in the game. I think I'm about 10 hours into the game, so I don't know what
About the same.
that is in terms of the thing. I think I'm a little bit further than Adam, but I don't know how much further. So anyway, we don't want to spoil it on each other. I know Eric doesn't want to spoil it on us, but he's probably dying to talk about it. Or he might not be, and that could be a bad sign. And we don't want to spoil each other, and we don't want to spoil it on other people. That's not the point of this. So this video is going to be, and this podcast episode, depending on how you're listening to it or watching it, is going to be totally non-spoiler, no spoilers at all. Even if you go on to YouTube, the thumbnail won't spoil anything. Surprise, surprise, big shocker, new game, no spoilers. Wow. If you're someone out there who puts spoilers in your thumbnail, stop being a prick. Don't do that. What the fuck are you doing? Sorry, I had to go off on that rant. That is so annoying. I can't believe day one there was I had to skim past shit, right? Like there was something I'd seen. I was lucky enough I'd already gotten to that point. I'm not going to say what it was, but I was like, come on, what are you doing? Don't spoil
Yeah,
the game.
people need to be way more considerate. Like I know, there's worse things going on in the world, obviously.
Oh, yeah.
But this kind of stuff is escapism, and it helps you kind of, get away from the bad shit that's happening in the world. You want to enjoy it, and if you're just going out there just for clicks and getting the one up on people, because you just have that early piece of footage or whatever.
Yeah.
Look, yeah, it's scummy. It is scummy.
Yeah, it's really
Don't
not
do it
cool.
again.
Try find a more clever way to get the clickbait rather than straight up spoiling it.
Well,
With
yeah.
your
Be honest.
With your title
Be
or
honest with it, will you?
Just
Yeah.
be honest.
At the start off with, and like if it's gonna be spoilers, then just put spoilers on it, but don't actually have an image or something that ruins it, right? Anyway,
Yeah.
this is going to be a very short first. That sounded like we're all in really bad form. We're all actually in really good form. This is a first impressions, our thoughts on the game so far from what we've seen, but absolutely no story spoilers. Even if that's some of the stuff that we know we've all already seen, like early stuff, we're not even going to talk about that. So this is totally safe of spoilers. It's literally just really our impressions of the game from what we have played so far, each of us. Eric, I am going to come to you first since you have completed the game, but you will have to bear in mind, obviously, not talk about things that are, big spoilers, even if that's a new gameplay feature that's much later in the game that nobody would know about from the first early hours.
Yeah, so as long
Right.
as it's stuff that was in, I don't know, play testings, like
Yeah.
demos and
So
stuff.
how did you find the game? What are your thoughts on the new game?
Okay. So graphically is a massive improvement. I know, Adam, you were saying that you didn't think the graphics were that great, but it is a massive improvement to the first one. It's not the best looking looking PS4 game. There is, because there are others that do look better, but they've made the greenery, because it's The Last of Us. There is buildings covered in foliage. They did make it look way more vibrant and lush. But yet there's something also quite bleak about the environment, which I think matches tonally the game really well. And then they have improved the gameplay mechanics, and they've improved on some of the things from the previous game, much better, and like visually better, and like the progression of your character plus some of the items and whatnot you get, they improved upon. But I would say the soundtrack, the actual score, isn't as good as the first one.
Okay.
And the Infected are great. The Infected are great. I was going to point that out. Always end on a positive note, which is a weird positive note, but I'm absolutely terrified of the Infected, which is great.
Okay.
So
Thanks very much, Eric, for your input.
You're welcome.
Adam, your first impressions of The Last of Us Part 2.
First off, I think it's an incredible game. I'm loving it so far. But yeah, what I said to Eric when I said that it's not that I didn't think the graphics weren't great, but there's something about it that feels very familiar. Like it doesn't feel like it's obviously better looking than the first one. Like that, it's going to be it's on a new platform. It's always going to look better on, But there's something about it that it feels very, very familiar. That it doesn't, it doesn't feel like a massive leap to me. Although it is, there's something about it. Even they managed to keep the artistic, I suppose, like textures and color, like the greenery in it almost is the same color tone. Like even though the technology is quite similar to what's in Uncharted 4.
Yeah.
But if you put them side by side, they don't look like the same game in terms of palette tones and stuff like that.
No.
It looks very close to the first one. And I think that's really interesting about this game. And I even say this same with the gameplay. There's obviously gameplay improvements. People would have noticed that in the the demos and stuff. But even they don't feel like a huge advancement to me.
Okay.
This game genuinely feels like a part 2 and not a sequel. Like not in the traditional sense of a sequel. Like what Uncharted 2 was to Uncharted 1. Uncharted 2 was like huge explosions and you do all kinds of things, and even Metal Gear Solid 2, like there was huge advancements over 1. This genuinely feels like a season 2. It's so familiar. The gameplay doesn't even feel that different. Like you're not overwhelmed with all these new things you can do,
Yeah.
So I'm really, really loving it. But yeah, I don't think it's the most impressive visually. I don't think it's the most impressive game on the PS4.
Okay. Interesting. I do. And I could be absolutely wrong, but I definitely put the controller down and went, this is the best looking thing I've ever fucking seen. And I'm sure people will point out other games. I probably haven't played them. So there's a moment I won't spoil. It's very early in the game, but I was on a horse. People have seen that in the trailer, right? I was on a horse. I was going through nature. And the lighting and I was like, this fucking looks real. Like this looks so unbelievable. This looks amazing. It looks incredible. I think the graphics are just mind blowing. They've blown me away literally nearly every step of the way. I think the lighting is incredible. I think the gameplay, it's not, they haven't reinvented the wheel, right? Like they haven't. But I do think it's smoother. I think it plays better than the first game. I think the gameplay is better. It has been improved because I think there's a few more options. Ellie as a character is more agile, and they've really played with the fact that she is younger and more youthful, and she can kind of move in different ways that Joel just couldn't in the first game. And that can really affect your playing style. Like I feel I've been in situations in this game where I feel I have more control, which is weird, but I do. I feel I have more control over my gameplay options and assets than I did ever playing the first game. That's not to say that they've taken away the intensity at all. This game is intense as fuck. Like this game is so intense. And I was saying it to the guys that like they've even captured, I mean, Naughty Dog are geniuses at capturing those like cinematic but in-game moments, right? They do Uncharted a lot, but they're usually like big action set pieces. There's a lot of that in this game, right? Like cinematic moments, and again, no specifics, but it's a very different feeling. It's not the feeling of wow, what a ride. It's the holy shit, I can't believe I made it out of that, right? It's like really intense, really brutal. The game is so violent, and I don't mean
it doesn't glorify it.
No, like it's not like Mortal Kombat and Gears of War are violent, but in like a animated way, and they are more violent, but it's cartoony and unrealistic and crazy and over the top. This game is uncomfortably violent. Like it's really touching on its themes in everything it's doing. It's that thing that we've gone back to many times where the gameplay serves the story, right? Um, and it's brutal. It's fucking brutal, and I mean that in a good way. I don't mean this is shit like. So for me, and again, I don't know how, because I don't know the length of the game. I don't know the scope of the game, so I don't know how far I actually am into it realistically. Like I am over 10 hours, but I don't know what that means or story points where I am. But for me, it's been incredible so far. Absolutely incredible. Like a masterpiece of a game.
Yeah, there's
So
hats off to Druckmann. He really is a master of his craft. Like the writing is, and it's not like he's trying to one up himself either. He feels it just feels like this is the natural progression of where the story goes, where the characters go.
right.
Like that's what I mean, that it just feels like a season 2 rather than like a sequel to a film.
Well, it definitely does.
It's not trying to one up itself. It's just trying to continue the,
Like, I think
the characters.
I always thought when it first came out, I always thought the title was weird because I was like, that's a bit long for a sequel title. But
Part 2?
No, The Last of Us Part 2, right? Like I always thought it was a bit much. The second you start it, again, I'm not going into specific. The second you start it, it justifies the title, right? Like it absolutely justifies its title. It is part 2. It is a continuation of the story. It's not really a new story. It's a continuation of the relationship of Joel and Ellie in that world that we know already from The Last of Us 1. I'd be interested to see. Obviously, when we've all finished it, we are going to do a long actual podcast episode on this. That one will have spoilers, and again, we will give fair warning. But it will be interesting to see after finishing it how we compare the two experiences, even though it's a continuation of story. Like they are obviously also two separate games. It'll be interesting to see, like, because The Last of Us has been praised by all of us as one of the best games ever made.
Yeah.
So it'll be interesting to see once we've all finished this one how we feel about this one in comparison to it. It's weird that there's there's loads of amazing reviews for it, and then there's a load of backlash to it.
Yeah.
I don't understand the backlash, but I haven't finished it. Maybe.
Wait, see, I haven't
maybe
read
ending
any
is shite.
of the,
I don't know.
I haven't read any of the backlash.
No, I'm staying away from it. I've
Either.
just seen lots because I'm afraid, like, obviously their justification for the backlash, I imagine, is going to be spoilers. So I don't want to know. So I've stayed away from it. But I have seen titles of articles and stuff and people talking about backlash. And so far, I don't get it. I don't understand it at all. Like,
No, I don't either.
Like, other than maybe you never wanted a sequel. Maybe you never wanted one. So like nothing that they could do maybe could ever please you, which is fair enough too.
Yeah. I also feel like there's a level of I'm only, guessing here because I haven't a clue. I stayed away from everything.
I'm going to stay quiet for this in case I accidentally say something I shouldn't, so I'll let you use this speculation.
Yeah, right, no, we speculate something and you go, well, that's wrong.
Yeah.
Throw you way off.
No, my guess is not necessarily story related or anything like that. Is that there's like there's kind of like a mob mentality, because I feel like there's a lot of people who just dislike Neil Druckmann, just hate him as a person.
Yeah, okay, yeah.
I don't really know why.
But then
I don't know what he's done.
Wouldn't you jump on the train earlier though, or do you think this is just since?
I think they have. I think they have
like...
since Uncharted 4, because I remember, and I know I had this discussion with Eric before. There were people who genuinely complained. Like there was QA testers, people who test the game before it's ever released.
Yeah.
When Nadine Ross in Uncharted 4 beats up Nathan Drake, and that QA tester threw his controller down and he screamed, "Oh no, not you, Naughty Dog, you liberal, whatever, all this kind of progressive shit and all this kind of stuff."
Right.
And he had to be thrown out, obviously, because he's not a QA tester supposed to test the game and you're not there to test its story or anything like that.
Okay.
And I guess he just had a problem with a woman being able to kick the shit out of the main character, which is so mental to me, because it's like obviously he's never watched James Bond before.
Or played Metal Gear Solid.
Also,
or Mortal Kombat, or
No, but
Tekken, or Street
also,
Fighter.
it's just a
Soul
huge
Calibur.
part of. It's a huge part of Drake's character. It's like he absolutely would get his ass handed to him by a woman because Drake is always just getting by. Like anyone would kick Drake's ass. Like, Drake's not a badass. Drake just happens to, you know what I mean? He's always like he hops behind a wall, finds a grenade, and goes fuck it, throw it. You know, it's like, he's not a kung fu master or anything like that. So that's just crazy.
So I think there is a level of ignorance out there towards Neil Druckmann writing.
Okay.
But I think he does. I think he does a phenomenal job of creating characters that are very believable, very realistic. And you know, people like Nadine or like Ellie or whatever, they exist in our world, so they're going to exist in those game worlds as well.
Yeah, no, I think I love his characters. I think they're so realistic and so like normally you want escapism in games. I think you want to get away from the real world. I think they find such a fascinating way of taking what is a very real, believable person and making them so interesting and so multi-layered to the point of just now they're iconic and all they're wearing is a pair of jeans and a shirt. You know, like it's not at first glance, it's never an iconic new character design. It's something
it's
like,
very
you
difficult
see
too,
in the world.
because like
like that's a balancing act. That's not...
because when you're creating a character, you always want to try to do a very interesting silhouette, you know, so that when you see them.
Hold on, I look at Eric going, don't say anything, and he's like, oh, the twist at the end is they don't have an interesting silhouette at the end.
They have horns and wings.
They make them interesting, and it's not interesting. Something crazy.
I'll say nothing.
No, I think he does characters really well, and I like the way they're written too. Like, I'm not going to go into anything, but like, there's even some of the characters and some of the stuff that they say, and I go, I mean, I like that they're addressing these real human issues. They seem like real people, but also not like really pushing it to the point of like, see what I'm doing?
It's not the
See what I'm
point
doing?
of the game.
Yeah, it's just natural. It's just like, this
it's
is
just part
real
of the dialogue. It's
No?
part of the there are specific moments where they do touch on some issues, but it's not like, you know, it's not hammered, you know, it's not like trying to shove it in your face or anything like that. And I think it's done subtly and it's done naturally, and I think it hits home too. It's not like as if they just brush it off either. It stays with you, it lingers. Yeah,
I would like to say...
he does really good writing, but he did that in the first one, you know, like in the first Last of Us, he does really great study on just humans and human problems.
Yeah, all throughout.
Yeah.
I suppose before we finish as well, one thing I would like to say from the gameplay perspective, something that they have taken from, like, the games always learn from each other. We saw that in Uncharted 4 had definitely learned a bit from The Last of Us and took some things from it. And this game has taken some stuff from Uncharted 4. And I think they work really well. I think they're fantastic. So it does, again, no specifics, but they do have these open areas where you can do multiple things and explore the area a bit. And the more you explore, the more you'll get out of it. I thought it was really good.
There's an element of God of War in there too. Like, obviously God of War was inspired by The Last of Us, and it's very clear that I really love that when you can see
they're all influencing each other, really, aren't they?
The Sony studios are fans of each other's games.
Yeah, and it's clear. It shows.
Yeah.
It shows. Is there anything else anyone wants to say on The Last of Us from their experience stuff? Eric, I suppose you can't. Yeah, I didn't realize you'd finished it. You see.
Yeah, I finished it today.
All right, just today.
About an hour before we came onto this to talk.
Because that's always a different experience to like where me and Adam are. Because we obviously have thoughts of how the game is performing.
Yeah.
But we can't say how we feel about the narrative overall because we haven't finished the narrative. You know that way?
Yeah.
Like, so
now I know how you felt when I
was at that point.
When I wouldn't finish Final Fantasy 7.
Oh, right, we were dying to talk about the ending. Yeah, it's kind of like that. Yeah, you're gonna have to wait, and it's gonna take us ages because
I know.
I have so much to do, and I don't think like it's a long game. It's a meaty game, just like big chunks.
Yeah. I think I've heard that it's about the length of God of War.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, which is, you know, which I suppose is like it's as long as you put into it.
Yeah, an element.
You know what I mean? Like, I think you can
like,
fly through it.
And actually, I will add to that. I think, Eric, you mentioned the Infected. I'm not going to go on about the Infected all that much, but I think there's definitely moments in this game, and people who play it will see it. I think I think, amped up the horror atmosphere. I think.
Yeah.
There's definitely areas and moments and places where I actually got vibes of Resident Evil 2 in terms of looking for extra supplies or finding codes that might open certain doors or certain safes or certain gates or whatever, but you'd have to go back and look for them, and the place will open up more and more the more you explore. Yeah, I kind of got feelings of Resi 2 in some of those dark corridors as well, so I thought that was fucking cool. But yeah, no, I just, so far, first impressions, I think the game is
I think one thing I would like to comment on, which is really nothing to do with the game itself, but it's the cover artwork. You know, I think everyone would have seen the cover art for it.
Yeah. Ellie
really don't like it.
You don't like it, yeah?
Don't like it at all.
I
just think that this generation of games, really has suffered on unique artwork. And I think the first Last of Us had both versions of it, whether it was the PS3 or PS4 version, had really I would call it engaging artwork that's fitting with the theme of the game.
Right.
But it's a really nice composition. Like I would nearly frame them. You know what I mean? I'd nearly get the PS3 cover and have that framed as a nice artwork. I wouldn't do that with this one. It's just a face, and we're seeing that with all kinds of games. It's just like the hero on the cover striking a pose, and it's just like, come on, it's such an artistic game.
Yeah.
Be more expressive with your artwork.
Eric, how do you feel about the cover of the game?
I'd actually I'd kind of be in agreement with Adam. I mean, like, it does the job. It's Ellie on the cover. She looks angry. Okay, fair enough. Everyone looks angry in that world, to be honest. Why wouldn't they be? But yeah, it's not exactly... I don't think it wouldn't stand out as much.
Right. I think, yeah.
And then when you see it, you're kind of just go, okay, that's what the cover is.
Yeah. I get the decision behind it. I get why it's so close up to Ellie's face. I mean, look, there's no secret about it. This isn't a spoiler. They've made it very clear in all the trailers. They're like, this game is more Ellie centered than it would be Joel centered, right? In comparison to the first one, they're giving us more time playing as Ellie this time around, and so I think that cover is just to really highlight kind of.
Oh yeah,
Ellie is at the forefront this time around, and it's kind of her story more than it is Joel's story, but yeah, it's not. Yeah, it's not doing anything particularly special or new. I suppose it is just. I would say that's the reason they used it. I think they probably had a few different covers, and they probably went.
Yeah. But did you notice, like, when you load up the game?
Yeah.
I think it's before you even get to the main menu. I think it's just a shot of her.
Yeah, and it's like a gray kind of.
It's black and white.
That as the cover. Yeah.
It's black and white, but it's like it's this exact same image. It's just
further back.
It's not cropped in, zoomed in on her face. It's like you're starting to see her shoulder. That's a way better image. The composition is much more striking.
I prefer that.
And I think as well with the cover, the way it is at the moment, it's just so dark that it's kind of like, I can't imagine that looks good on a shelf. If you're trying to sell this thing.
Yeah, I get you.
So really, you're just relying on the fact that it's The Last of Us Part 2. And I just see that as, like, I think they could have had a good opportunity. But I think it's not really down to Naughty Dog. I think it's partially down to Sony. And there's just something about this generation that has to have your main character striking a stupid pose on the front of the cover. Like, name a cover this generation that's good.
Oh well, I think
the Evil Within 2 and the Evil Within 1.
They have really good ones, but Final Fantasy 7 Remake. But that's purely from a nostalgia perspective, you know.
I don't even think that's
They recreated the artwork of the original, so I thought
that was the original US version.
Oh, sorry. You see, I suppose I have the deluxe version, so I'm looking at the overall case with the new Meteor. I just think that's fucking awesome.
But I mean,
you're right.
The actual case,
cloud on the I know. But anyway,
hold on, I can get one.
are you trying to think of one?
Nah,
Nah,
that doesn't matter. Yeah.
That sums up our first impressions and first thoughts of The Last of Us Part 2. There will be a podcast episode in a few weeks. We'll see when we're all finished it anyway, and we've all had a good impression of it. Next year, man.
That's like if we're still alive. That is.
We're still alive.
I mean, this year is getting fucking crazy.
That's crazy, man. It's unreal. It might be the last of us that we do. But we will be doing one. It'll be a full podcast episode in greater detail, and in that one we will be talking all the spoilers. But for now, if you've been playing it, okay, do get in touch. Do let us know your thoughts, but do not spoil it on people. We don't want to spoil on us, and we don't want to spoil on other people. It's just one of those kinds of games. If someone's watching the brand new TV show, it's not nice to go and spoil the ending on anyone. So, but we would like to know what your thoughts are on the graphics, the gameplay. Maybe people hate that stuff, and maybe that's some of the backlash. I don't know. Like other people might not like it. I don't know. Be interested to see. But until then,
I hate good graphics.
I fucking hate the shit. But until then, we will talk to you next time. Bye bye.